good afternoon, everybody. I'm William Murdoch. I'm the Executive Director of the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission. Folks just call us MORPC. We'll get started here in about 20 or 30 seconds to allow folks to jump in, but we're thrilled that you're joining us for a session that's fun, but also serious as we're getting ready for trains, planes, and even, yes, flying cars. So we'll be back in about 15 seconds to kick things off. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. We've got a great program for you today. Again, I'm William Murdoch, the Executive Director here at MORPC. We want to share a great program with you today about trains and planes and, yes, even things that fly in the sky as part of our work in transportation in Central Ohio. Before we dig into it, I want to make sure that you're aware of some things that we do for the community that could be helpful. First thing is for the businesses that are in your community and other organizations, we have the MORPC Commute Action Fund, which can provide direct incentives to help them find better ways to work. So this is a new program and it's something that we're pretty excited to roll out. Next slide. We have one directly for the local governments to address their capital needs. We have a deadline coming up for infrastructure funding if you are in Franklin County. Because we run the District 3 for Ohio Public Works. Those in surrounding counties have deadlines coming up too soon. So if you need any help with that, please let Nate Foe or Thomas Graham know. We have benefits for your employees. We have a partnership with Ohio University to provide a $1,000 tuition scholarship. If we go after, if any of your employees, whether you're at the airport or a township or county, city, wherever, if you're a member of MORPC, your employees qualify for this benefit. They also qualify at a new partnership we launched just a couple weeks ago with Franklin University. And this is a big one. It's 20% discount on all undergraduate tuition, master's degree tuition, and even a discount off of doctoral degrees. It's a way that we can value public service and continuing education. So if you need to know more, there's some dates coming up more soon about that. And then 2 events, one focused on something we care very much about, that's transportation safety. We have a forum with a very exciting speaker, Beth Osborne, from the Director of Transportation for America, and Drew Van Hengel with Nelson Nygaard. This is going to be one you don't want to miss. It's virtual. And then the last one we have is on sustainability. And this is our Summit on Sustainability, which will be in person as of right now on October 15th. This is about local governments and common sense approaches to sustainability of all types. And it's always a great event. We're really hoping that you can join us for it this year. And with that, let's get to trains, planes, and flying automobiles. So I'm going to turn it over to MORPC's Director of Transportation and Infrastructure Development, Thea Ewing. Go ahead, Thea.
Thank you for your patience there as I was clicking through. Thanks, William. And I'm Thea Ewing. I'm the Transportation Director, Transportation and Infrastructure Development Director here at the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission. And today I'm going to talk to you about trains. So Eileen, move on to my presentation. I would like to give everybody an update on what's going on with our Midwest Connect corridor and planning for the 3C and D corridor. 3CD stands for Cincinnati, Columbus, and Cleveland, and Dayton along that route as well. Next, please. So these are the 2 corridors we've been working on here at MORPC for some time. One is this green corridor that moves from Chicago to Pittsburgh. You'll see we have a couple iterations of that because we're still working through what is the best route to take a train on that corridor. Then also the blue one is that 3C and D corridor that I mentioned, the Cincinnati, Columbus, and Cleveland corridor. Oftentimes you will hear me talk about the green one, Midwest Connect. We also, that was the focus of our Rapid Speed Transportation Initiative study. So sorry, I'm getting feedback. Can we make sure everyone's muted? Thank you. So that corridor was also studied for rail and Hyperloop, and the Cincinnati, Columbus, Cleveland was not. Really excited to share with you what we know and where we're going on both of them. Next slide, please. Probably the most important thing to note is Amtrak. It has noted our region as being a very strong business opportunity for rail. It is nearly one of the, it's the largest or one of several largest in the country without rail, the Columbus region not being served by rail at all. The only other one that's not being served by intercity rail is Phoenix, but they even have light rail within their region, and we do not. And then Vegas is another one, but they are actually working on that now. So we're really at a place where this could be a game changer for us, and we are glad that Amtrak sees that as a business opportunity for themselves. Next slide, please. What we offer too is a great place for a station location in Central Ohio. You know, often we have talked about the convention center being the place where this could happen. This is actually a rendering of what the new hotel will look like at the turnaround at the convention center. Just behind that turnaround is roughly where the tracks are at. Where you see those holes in the ground, the tracks are really running underneath that. And a station could really be to the back side of that area. I have a proposed passenger rail little map up there on your right-hand corner that shows some of the locations in the convention center that could be leveraged for this space. And then the best part about the convention center is it's kind of a ready-to-go station because there's already things like food courts and other ancillary services that Amtrak would want. So we're really excited that I guess planners of the past really did think this through, and there's a natural place for a train to stop in Columbus, and now we just need to make that happen. Next slide. So first, let's talk about the Midwest Connect route. We really focus quite a bit on what the population growth is going to be out to the years 2040. The Chicago region is going to grow by 20% out to 2040, the Columbus region by 24%, and the Pittsburgh region by 12%. And these are kind of the numbers whenever that growth, or actually where we're starting from, in the population now. We do see the potential ridership somewhere between 200 and 400,000 a year on the annual ridership. And then for 12 round trips, if there were going to be 12 round trips, we see that in the 500 to 700,000 range. There's more work that needs to be done to refine some of these numbers. So I think these are best case estimates, but we're really encouraged by what we're seeing thus far and want to continue the conversation with both Amtrak and other private rail providers like Brightline on this corridor. And so that is the blue outline corridor. So I referred to this as in the beginning, back around 2013, and the beginning really starts in this case right after we're no longer in consideration for the 3C corridor in the state of Ohio about 10 years ago. And then we at MORPC continued to look at our connections to other places nearby that maybe weren't on that. And that's when we started working towards a connection towards Chicago. So this was one of the early maps from that planning effort. Another thing we really focused on during that time, and as we leveraged this project moving it forward, was identifying those Fortune 500 businesses that are on this corridor. And then eventually we did talk about expanding it over to Pittsburgh, and we even did the Hyperloop study on this, as I mentioned. I'm not going to focus much on that right now, although that is a viable option for this corridor as well. But you can see there's a number of high-level businesses on this corridor that could benefit from a rail or a Hyperloop corridor connecting Chicago to Pittsburgh via Columbus. Next, please. Oh, Go back one. Thank you. So some things to note about the route alternatives. We've been working with our friends in Indiana, and they've spent a lot of the work. They've done a lot of the work over on the Indiana state side from Chicago all the way into Lima. And then we picked that work up moving on over to Pittsburgh and continued doing that focus of the study. I will say it's pretty nice, flat and straight going into Chicago out of Lima, but once you come into Ohio, it's kind of a different story, and particularly over in that eastern half. So that's what makes this route a little bit more challenging, I think, especially the more eastern we go, but certainly not insurmountable. Next slide, please. We continued to support this route from the initial conversation on it, including thinking through how we would have a multimodal station near the airport should that come to fruition whenever we worked on the JET task force with the city. And you'll see in our long range planning efforts, as well as even some of the communities around us as they're planning, what they're planning to do for the future of rail. So I'm really excited that this is kind of picking up momentum, picking up speed, and I think there's an opportunity for rail to happen in this, I guess, decade, this effort that we're making at this point in time. So next slide, please. What you're going to see here is this is our 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan map. We did an outline for transit corridors in the region, as well as further study for high capacity transit, looking at existing routes, the whole 9 yards. And what you see in those like pink shaded areas are areas where we really could be considering more connections. And you'll see there's one that goes up towards Union County, and there's one that goes up towards Delaware. And that's the reason why we're looking at things beyond just local transit when we put these things on the map. So we stand behind that, and that's been approved by our commission, and we'll continue to move these down the line. And that's important, even if the funding isn't there, because when the funding does become available, like we're seeing now, and I'm going to go into here in a moment, you have to be able to go and you have to be able to produce a project. And so we're keeping this region prepared and ready for the project that it deserves. Next, please. So this is a number of studies. Some of you are aware of these. Maybe some of you are new to this concept. So we do have our passenger rail route alternatives analysis and our rapid transportation initiative existing conditions and market study, as well as on that Chicago to Pittsburgh line, the 2020 Hyperloop feasibility study was completed. And actually at the bottom of that slide was the web address where you can find all those. Next, please. All right, and so where we're at on the rail side from the Chicago to Pittsburgh corridor is really, we've gotten to a point where we've done everything we can do to this point without getting really serious or having a known provider of service moving us down the line. So the next steps we'll make are service alternatives and infrastructure investments. And so really what we're talking about now is, like, where would we put the rail, and who would work with us on that, and what kind of service they would provide. We do currently have, and this actually goes for both the Midwest Connect and the 3C and D corridors. We currently do have AECOM working with us to update ridership and kind of keep us abreast of anything that could change with that, because they're continuously doing studies, like whether it be rail or Hyperloop connecting all the way through to New York and to Detroit. So they're looking at multiple options for us, which is great, and allows us to really be able to pivot and think through future investments. That's really important whenever we're considering all of the funding that's going to be coming forward for infrastructure in the next couple of years. We don't want to be left without having those good, solid talking points about where we could be if they made that investment with us. Next slide, please. So I'll move on quickly to the 3C and D corridor. Also a very promising corridor in the state of Ohio, connecting Cincinnati, Columbus, and Cleveland. both the Cincinnati and Columbus regions are on a trajectory of growth to 2040, and we already saw it in the census numbers in this last week. What kind of growth has been happening in the Central Ohio region? We did a very recent analysis with AECOM on potential ridership. It's looking better than it had in the past at 400 to 800,000 riders per year, which is pretty awesome. I'm really loving where they're going with this and all the stations that they're predicting. Next slide, please. So if you want to learn a little bit more about what Amtrak's intentions are, there's a whole Amtrak 2035 plan, and our proposal is in it, and it's there in the red circle. You see there's a blue line that goes from Cincinnati to Cleveland. That is considered a new service. All of this can be found under Connect Us on their website. Go to the next slide, please. And so they actually just posted everything up about a week ago after the bipartisan infrastructure bill got passed through the Senate. They shared their Connect Us vision on their website, which was really awesome. And they talked about the 3 daily round trips. And here's some of the initial timing that they're recording. They identify who the host railroads are going to be. They've identified the station areas. They've even talked about how this will make, a service like this will make Cleveland and Cincinnati hubs, and the different connections that we can make beyond this, like to New York, Detroit, Chicago. Really exciting. It looks like they're looking at about 130 million annually, plus about 2.6 billion in economic activity from one-time capital investment. These are all Amtrak's numbers. We are also verifying all this information ourselves for our region to ensure this is the type of investment we would be encouraging. So we'll continue to work with our leaders here as this unfolds to ensure that we're on the right track, no pun intended. So I'm getting ready to close out here. We did some letters of support to Amtrak as all this was getting started. I just wanted to let you know that this is not just about one corridor to us. This isn't about just Central Ohio community. We really want to show that because a lot of the conversation is about improvements, particularly the Amtrak conversation about improvements on the Cincinnati line, and there's like a Cleveland connection, and they already have rail stations. What's beautiful about this support is it's in neither one of those locations. It's very central, mid-central Ohio, really supports rail, and not only on the 3C and D line, but also on that Chicago line. And then we have people outside of the state who are supporting this too. So I feel like things are really kind of picking up momentum. And with the bipartisan infrastructure package moving to this next stage of the game, that's an exciting time for us to be kind of in a place for, I guess, that window of opportunity to open around rail again. So I hope I've excited you about the potential for rail in Ohio and Central Ohio soon. And just know that MORPC is going to continue planning for the future of that service in hopes that we can attract that here to Central Ohio. Thank you.
Thank you, Thea. That was wonderful and fits right in with all the studies going on. How many people don't want to be in vehicles? They want to be transported. It's very good. So Thea is going to introduce our next speaker. Let's move on.
Thank you. I'm pleased to introduce Richard Jones as we segue to talking about planes. Richard is the Enterprise Data and Systems Manager for the Columbus Regional Airport Authority. Richard's work with architects, engineers, and system administrators in the areas of cybersecurity, networking, infrastructure, and data and enterprise applications for airports, city-like data and IT landscape. He oversees efforts to create an environment that is safe and enjoyable to use. And Richard was one of the architects of the Smart Columbus operating system, the data backbone of the Smart Columbus program, which uses the open source data platform to provide near real-time data for public-private sources. He began his career helping states assess their goals related to the national data standards in his work with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. He's an engineer graduate of OSU and is acquired his degrees from Rose State College and the Community College of the Air Force. Please welcome Richard Jones. Now let's talk about planes.
Thank you. Let's talk about planes. Thank you. That was a great introduction, Thea. I really appreciate that. I appreciate MORPC for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I also want to thank Sarah McQuaid, who's on the call. She's one of our communications managers. Her team helped me put this slide deck together and gave me some coaching. And I wanted to thank all of you for spending your lunch with us today. So tell you a little bit about myself. Outside of what was in that great introduction is I joined the Smart Columbus program because I wanted to do something not at the national level. I'd been with NHTSA for about 7 years, helping states understand how they're using their transportation data. And when I heard about the Smart Cities Challenge and Columbus being a winner, I jumped on that and was offered an opportunity to work with the Smart Columbus program and be one of the architects and designers for the Smart Columbus operating system. During that time, I got to start working with Jody Baer, who's our CIO at the airport. And when she came to the airport, she asked, her and I put our head together and started talking about some of the challenges and some of the strategic thinking that was happening at the airport. And I got really excited about it. And so I was able to join this team to help modernize our environment and start looking at the airport's data assets and how we can mature those and look at opportunities to increase revenue, but more importantly, increase the passenger experience. Next slide, please. So tell you a little bit about the Columbus Regional Airport Authority. It consists of 3 campuses, 3 different airfields. We have the Bolton Airfield, the Rickenbacker Airfield, which is has some passenger traffic and is mostly used for cargo. And then the John Glenn International Airport, which most of you guys are probably familiar with. It's our most passenger-focused airport, and the one we'll be talking about the most today. Pre-COVID levels, we were running about 9 million passengers through, about 8.7 million passengers through annually. Data this month is showing that we're about 80% of that, running about 10,000 passengers daily through the airport. Next slide, please. Our CMH airport, John Glenn, services a majority of the state. About 33 counties rely on it as its primary airport, the airport of choice, and we're really grateful for that. And I love working for a company that puts so much emphasis and its mission around the passenger experience and collecting their feedback and wanting to understand how to use that. So the airport supports roughly a staff of 400 employees, some of those seasonal. And our city, our airport is like a small city. We have a fire department, we have a police department with a K-9 unit, we have a financial business unit, we have business development business unit, we have a data center. So when you start to look at that from the lens of a data, it actually looks like a small city within the airport, and I'm happy to be a part of that. Next slide, please. So what I'd like to do is walk through some of the ideas that we're exploring, some of the things that we're experimenting with, some of the initiatives that we're taking underway. And some of these aren't fully developed yet. We haven't implemented all of these yet, or will implement all of these, but this will give you a good idea of how we're thinking about data at the airport, how we can get excited about it. And it all focuses on the passenger's journey. Our passenger's journey doesn't start when they get into the terminal. It actually starts at home when they're thinking about coming to the airport. Some of the things that we're trying to think about is, can they prepay for parking before they get here? And when they get to the airport, can we help them find where their parking spot is? And once they get to their parking spot, can we tell them how long it's going to be till their shuttle gets there? And when their shuttle gets there, can we help them prepare to get to their gate? And once they get to their gate, can we make sure that they have options for entertainment or shopping or dining to make that a good experience for them? Next slide, please. Some of the things that we're trying to do with that experience is provide wayfinding. And as the passengers, get into the parking lot and they get to their parking spot, we want to collect anonymized data to help them personalize that data experience without collecting PII, personal identifiable information, along the way. Some of the things they might experience through this is on the shuttle, they may see a screen that has license plate numbers where they can match their license plates to their parking spot and get an idea of what time they're going to arrive at the terminal. Once they may see, you know, how long at their gate it's going to take them with or without a bag to check in to get there. And they might be able to, you know, order some food from Charlie's or one of our other restaurants and have kind of a grab and go experience. For some of the users that are, for some of our customers that didn't prepay, you know, we want to get them into the parking garage and show them where available parking spots are, and help some of our ADA customers by, you know, showing where the handicapped parking is. Next slide, please. Our customers' feedback and their experience is really important to us. What customers want when they get to the airport, they want to feel safe. They want to know that we're looking out for them. They want to have room to stretch out, and they want to have options when they get here. And we want to make sure that we're collecting their feedback and doing the most that we can for them. And we feel like technology can play a big part of that. But not only for our passengers, we want our employees to have a safe experience too. And we want them to feel secure while they're working at the airport. Next slide, thank you. One of the other things that we're doing is we've collected a lot of feedback around our Wi-Fi experience. And we want to greatly improve that by redesigning our Wi-Fi network. We've worked with a company called 7Signal to collect user data around how people are using our Wi-Fi as they go through the airport. And what we're finding is that we need to reallocate our access points so that we have a broader range of coverage. And we need to make that experience more homogeneous to them so that they have the Wi-Fi they need so that they can connect to their family, so that they can stay in touch with their family and work while they're here. And then they can also you know, have their entertainment. People want to play Netflix and play video games while they're waiting for their plane, and we want to make sure that they can do that. On the other lens of that is helping, I'm sorry, can you go back real quick? The other lens of that is helping our IT department and helping our staff by giving them more self-service options. We don't want them to have to call IT every time they want to reset a password. We want to give them the ability to work from any platform, anywhere, and maintain that same session that they experienced the last time they were on. All right, next slide. So doing all this improves our cybersecurity. Moving to that cloud-first, data-first strategy and bringing in more like a role-based access control model around how people are accessing our systems improves the overall security. It helps us buy smarter, it helps us utilize more, and it helps us integrate a lot more. And doing all that allows us to provide a safe and working, safe and secure work platform. Next slide, please. So to do all this, it's a lot of work to modernize an entire airport's technology sector. And to do that, we have to rethink about how we talk and action and take on work. And part of that is modernizing our workforce. It's hiring the right people. It's bringing in people that are eager to learn, because learning has got to be part of our culture now. It's got to be something that we're always adapting, always changing, always working for the next step. Next slide, please. One of the ways we've done that, and one of the things we want to do here, is construct a data platform to help shuffle all this unified information around to the different IoT devices, to the different platforms that are consuming it, to our different partners and vendors who needs to know what's going on to the airport, to the different airlines and our tenants who need that data to make good business decisions. And one of the things we've done is introduced a new way of thinking about work and moving away from waterfall style approaches of tackling projects to more of an agile shift. What you're looking at here is a Kanban board. And each of those cards on that Kanban board represents a small slice of work. And we look at that work and we talk about the complexity and the effort and the risk and the value add of each thing we do. And so we're able to fail quickly and really gold plate our successes by incrementally doing work. Each card on there represents a knowledge base, and it contributes to the knowledge base. We capture what we're doing, why we're doing it, who's doing it, how they did it, and if there's an attachment or a document, it gets attached here too. And then we share this with our staff members, and we share this with our other business units so they have access to what's happening in technology. We want to make this visible for all of our staff so that they can see where's IT at with this effort. Where's my feedback being handled at? All right, next one. So how do we do it? Once we have this data, we need to make sure that we have ways of analyzing it. That much data, those big data problems where you have velocity, variety, and volumes of unstructured data, it's a challenge. And bringing that much compute on premise is really difficult. So we have to look at the cloud. And with us supporting 800 cameras at the airport, we need a system that can analyze that data very quickly and provide that real-time data and analytics out to mobile devices, out to their platforms, but more importantly, be able to do predictive analysis. I mean, being able to predict what's going to happen based off of what's happened before is a very powerful tool for us. And it allows us to be proactive in a lot of our services. It allows us to prepare for what our customers need before they need it. Next slide. So working with Smart Columbus and AT&T, we partnered together on different ways that we may be able to use our video data from our existing cameras to improve the customer experience from the time they're in the parking lot all the way out to the apron. Some of the things that we're looking is at how can we leverage AI for and machine learning and artificial intelligence for managing traffic outside of the terminal, for doing parking management, for tracking social distancing conditions where an event may cause crowding so that we can get in front of that and try to break up that crowd a little bit and keep people socially distanced. How can we use that to analyze suspicious behaviors and see what people are doing at the airport that the human eye may not always be able to, I mean, we have a lot of staff, but they can't watch everything all the time, but our cameras definitely can. We can lean on AI to help monitor some of that stuff that's going on. Next slide. We also want to help our tenants. We have about 12 shops and restaurants at the airport, and they all don't have marketing consultants that can pull all of our customers to know what's going on. So some of the things that we'd like to help them understand is how long are customers staying in their store? What are they looking at? What windows are being watched and which windows are being ignored? How many people are just walking by without really giving a second glance to their restaurant? How do we pull them in? And we want to provide that data to our tenants to help improve their engagement with our customers. Next slide. Some of the other information that we want to know as well is that in addition to what we want to provide our tenants is, you know, where are people congregating at the airport? How frequently has the restroom been used, or how frequently has a kiosk or a service been used? And we can break the airport into data zones and then use heat maps to help understand the behavior of people as they go through the airport. And then we can use that information to proactively send out maintenance, or we can send out security alerts when we're detecting things that are out of the normal. Next slide. The other piece of this is I talked a little bit earlier about building data profiles, and anonymizing data profiles is kind of a tricky thing, but then how do you know if you have repeat customers? How do we know who's coming back to the airport again? So keeping those anonymized data sets and then mapping those to like a cell phone's MAC address or mapping that to a license plate allows us to tell tenants and allows us to look at kiosks and say, who's revisiting that kiosk over and over again, and what are they doing while they're there? Next slide. I wanted to give a real world example of how AI and how cloud computing has improved things at the airport. We've deployed body-worn cameras to all of our police officers, and we have police cruisers, and I already mentioned the 800 CCTV cameras. And when we get a public records request, or there's an incident where we need to provide video evidence, one of the things that we have to do is we have to redact the video and audio from bystanders who aren't a part of that incident. This is it was a very time-consuming process for our staff. It would take, for one video, one angle of one camera for 1 hour, it could take 20 man-hours of editing and hundreds of hours of processing. Leveraging AI and cloud platforming, we can do multiple cameras with audio and video with one person doing it in about an hour for 1 hour's worth of video. So and the other benefit of that is we can do it at about 1/7 the cost of what we were doing before. So it's really helped us in that area.
Hi, Richard. We're going to move kind of to your ending here, if that's all right.
What's that?
We're going to move to the end if we can.
Yeah, go right ahead. We can skip this slide. And the last thing I wanted to show real quick was this is Emma. Can you go ahead and click on that video and click play? This is autonomous vehicles in action at the airport. This is Emma. She is a floor scrubber. And we point her where to work and she texts us when it's done. Emma has a 3D camera mounted on the front and 4 2D cameras mounted around her. And as obstacles get in her way, she takes a picture and texts the supervisor, who then can go out and clear the obstacle and then text us when she's done working. All right, that's it. I really appreciate you guys joining us. I really appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to speak. Thank you very much. Thank
you, Richard, so much. We all need an Emma. Thank you very much. That was wonderful. That was planes. What's going on at airport? We're going to look forward to some of those changes taking place. So let's move on to Fred Judson. See, Fred, you want to turn your camera on, and I'm going to keep my camera off as I keep moving here. Fred is the Ohio Department of Transportation Drive Ohio Director of Ohio Unmanned Aircraft Systems. He's got 26 years of experience. He's on almost every committee I can think of in unmanned territory. Fred, welcome, and tell us about flying cars. Are we talking about flying cars? Oh, you want to unmute, Fred?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So flying cars, somewhat of a misnomer, but definitely the transport of people and cargo. So Fred Judson, as Eileen said, director of the Ohio UAS Center, part of the Ohio Department of Transportation, and Drive Ohio, which is the innovation arm of the Department of Transportation, focused on the future of mobility, both on the ground and in the air. So I'm lucky because I get to talk about the air side and leading what's termed as the third revolution in aviation, being the Wright brothers' birthplace of aviation in Ohio, starting. The second was the jet engine, and then the third, typically the third revolution is termed as the electrification of aviation, but I'm going to throw in a lot of other reasons for the third revolution, being autonomous operations, as well as reduced cost of the aircraft itself. So there's a bunch of things on the screen. Accelerate Ohio is the Jobs Ohio's on the ground and in the air strategy for marketing Ohio. And then the Fly Ohio initiative is the initiative led by the Ohio UAS Center under Drive Ohio, focused on that, the larger people and cargo movement with the new aircraft concepts, which is really where we're getting into what some people call flying cars. Go to the next slide. But when we start talking unmanned aircraft systems, some people's mind may go to drones, which are smaller autonomous aircraft technologies. We're going to concentrate on what's more termed as advanced air mobility or urban air mobility. Those are the larger aircraft platforms. A lot of the new concepts now go more into what those concepts look like, have a vertical takeoff and landing piece to them. But really, when you get into the differentiators between the small autonomous aircraft and to large, is really the payload capacity, or the ability to carry a person or larger cargo. And that's where we're going to concentrate our conversations on today. There's 2 federal programs. Both are very active in Ohio because of a lot of the efforts that I'll mention in the next oncoming slides. Those 2 efforts are the Air Force's Agility Prime and their focus on cargo and people movement, realizing that commercial sector in the last 5 to 10 years have really picked up with the new advances in efficient electric motors, battery technology, which has led to that third revolution in aviation. And so they created what they call Agility Prime, not only to meet Department of Defense objectives, but also bolster our fledgling advanced air mobility industry in the United States. And then akin to that is the NASA a National Campaign for Advanced Air Mobility, of which I'm going to talk more about Ohio's support for the national campaign, and where we are actually engaging in all the NASA research centers and helping us do some of the operations under that award from NASA. Next slide. So when it comes down to, when we're looking at how does the Department of Transportation help out this new revolution in aviation, so if we look at the highway ground infrastructure, the Department of Transportation takes care of the interstate and roadway networks. We don't drive the trucks, but we take care of the infrastructure that supports the trucks to do what they need to do. We look at that as the same as in the airspace, particularly in the lower altitude airspace, where we're providing sensing infrastructure to make sure that when the aircraft is flying, the aircraft doesn't collide with other aircraft. And there's a lot, and we could go into an hour into each of these different projects, so I'm going to give you just a brief overview. The UTM Corridor, which is along our 33 Smart Mobility Corridor, but also includes an urban area of downtown Columbus, provides sensing or radar capabilities to provide industry to do last mile 1 hour package delivery services beyond line of sight. Now, we don't have a beyond line of sight designation from the FAA, but we are working through that process with them. And satisfying that requirement that the FAA needs to see that the aircraft is not going to collide with other aircraft. So that's the UTM project. Our Sky Vision ground-based detect and avoid asset sits at the Springfield-Beckley Airport, and that manages the airspace between 1,000 and 10,000 feet MSL. And that's in partnerships with our Air Force Research Laboratory out of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. That it does pretty much the same thing, but in a slightly higher altitude, allowing for industry to come in and test and do research and testing on their aircraft technologies, particularly the new ones that we're mentioning today. We have a remote tower effort that's going on, and what remote towers are is your traditional air traffic control towers, but virtualizing that. So putting sensors on a pole and then feeding that to a centralized control center where you could actually manage several airports from one location. Where we see remote towers being particularly beneficial for Ohio is in our small to medium-sized airports. That will allow more advanced activities to happen in our small to medium-sized airports, but then also realizing that once we go forward with this technology, that it has the potential to support the new advanced air mobility concepts that we'll be mentioning in the previous slides. Our proposal has 2 locations, one at the Springfield-Beckley Airport, leveraging our Sky Vision, detect and avoid, and all of the other advanced air mobility infrastructure, but also one at Kent State, leveraging Kent State's nationally recognized air traffic controllers program in training our future air traffic controllers, not just in traditional air traffic control, but also what it would take for them to become remote towers operators as well. And then our lower altitude aircraft detection and tracking research project that is to kick off here in the next 2 weeks. That is to take all of this information that we are collecting and combining it into one standardized framework that we can then push out to interested stakeholders. Next slide. Again, just to talk a little bit about our UTM and our Sky Vision. As you can see, when we talk UTM, it's unmanned aircraft traffic management, and that's really for this small aircraft in lower altitude. So in this instance, like the 0 to 400 feet, and then eventually going 0 to 2,000 feet. And then our Sky Vision asset, which manages that 1,000 to 10,000 feet, and combining those for that safe national airspace integration. Next slide. Now, to prepare the state for advanced air mobility, we had to number one, define what that is, and then paint the picture of what it would look like out to the year 2045. And there's a link that's included in this slide, and I know these slides will be available for everyone. But we have a advanced air mobility economic impact analysis for the state of Ohio. It is the first economic impact for an entire state for advanced air mobility. There are several national ones that went out for that NASA sponsored. In seeing that, we said, okay, but what does that mean for Ohio? So we released a research project a year and a half ago that was completed about 6 months ago for that study just to be done for Ohio. And some of the numbers that you're seeing up here is what those numbers would look like for the state. And there's a lot of information, so I don't have enough time to go over anything in detail. So I encourage you to either do a Google search for the Ohio Department of Transportation Economic Impact Study for Advanced Air Mobility, should put it bring you up to that, or using the link here. But as you can see, out in the year 2045, advanced air mobility is going to be a major impact for Ohio. One of the numbers not included here is the additional brand new 16,000 jobs that will be created as this technology matures and scales. Next slide. So we won the NASA ACO3 for community integration of advanced air mobility. The ACO3, one of the major objectives is actually education, and is to educate people on what is advanced air mobility and how does that, and what does that mean for everyone. And it, as we do our reach outs through several efforts that we have going on across our communities, there's a varying degree on what advanced air mobility means. A lot of times we may go into, small unmanned aircraft and privacy issues with cameras, which while if we look at advanced air mobility as a holistic concept, that may be a small part of it, but we're really talking about is the movement of cargo and people. In that we may, people may think of flying cars as your car will transform into a aircraft. And while there's a few concepts out there that does do that, what we're really talking about is vertical landing takeoff aircraft that may depart us from some of the traditional airport infrastructure that's required and open up a lot of areas, not just in the urban settings, but also our rural settings. So looking at rural to urban and urban center to urban center, as well as rural to rural communities that have never been there before. And that's really what our missions are right now, is trying to educate everyone, and which is part of the reason why I'm giving this presentation today. And then eventually, when we can reach that level of understanding, at that point, we really can give people our organizations the tools they need to do their long-range transportation, informed for public policy, land use planning, and then eventually leading to funding and incentives to get that industry up and going in Ohio. Next slide. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the aircraft concepts and why are they so revolutionary. On the screen are the three major concepts that are moving ahead for advanced air mobility. And the top image is a vertical landing and takeoff aircraft with a fixed wing component. The departure from this type of aircraft from your traditional helicopters is the inclusion of the airfoils, so you can have some aerodynamic efficiencies that will increase your range. And then one thing that these aircraft technologies have that traditional helicopters do not is the redundancy piece. Most of the concepts that have matured over the last 5 years are fully redundant. So you've got redundant electrical systems, you've got redundant propulsion systems, with the addition of parachute recovery, which is a big departure from our traditional vertical landing takeoff aircraft. Also, the industry has its eyes on being fully electric. Now, while battery technology is still lagging, which does limit some of the endurance of these aircraft, a lot of companies are coming out with the hybrid using gas with their eyes on hydrogen once hydrogen gets to the capabilities to be used as a viable option. And then realizing that the larger aircraft concepts, a lot of them are coming out optionally piloted. So they're fitting underneath the existing aircraft rule sets as a piloted aircraft with high levels of autonomy. And then at some point when our regulatory, the FAA gets to the aircraft certification piece and our air traffic control system is able to accept autonomously piloted aircraft, they can remove those pilots. And then the other two concepts below are variations. The concept on the bottom left doesn't have the airfoil, so it's reduced endurance, but also reduced footprint with the ability to get in and out of locations that the one at the top may not be able to, with the reduced cost of that aircraft. And then the last one is a newer concept that's coming out, and some of these are very promising. That's your short takeoff and landing aircraft. That's where it actually doesn't have a vertical component, but it's able to, in a small area, so we're talking like a 100-foot by 300-foot pad, get the air moving across the wing to provide that aerodynamic efficiency to get the aircraft up and flying in a very short amount of real estate as compared to a traditional conventional takeoff and landing aircraft. So these are the three major concepts that are out there. There's a lot more, but this is when we start talking advanced air mobility, those concepts that you can refer back. Next slide. So going back to our national campaign, we feel, and which departs us from the other winners for ACO3 in support of NASA's National Campaign for Advanced Air Mobility, is that we're focusing on actual operations around our outreach, public outreach piece. So as part of our submission to NASA, we had 3 vehicle OEMs, Kitty Hawk, which is pictured there on the left, Moog, which has the Sherp Fly, which is being developed out of Cincinnati at the top right, and then Reliable Robotics. Now, I said there's a lot of different concepts in advanced air mobility, and when you start talking autonomy, this is an example of an existing conventional takeoff and landing aircraft that has the ability to taxi, take off, land, and taxi again without a pilot on board. And that concept, while it isn't vertical landing takeoff or even electric, because it's fully autonomous, makes it another advanced air mobility concept. And these guys will be doing operations with us wrapped around our public outreach. Next slide. And so I'm proud to say MORPC is one of our collaborators for our ACO3 with NASA, as well as the Columbus Regional Airport Authority. So definitely leaders in this field, and we're excited to have their input and guidance as we reach out to try to educate on what advanced air mobility is going to mean for Ohio. And I won't go through all of our participants, but we have 32 all across the state, and then realizing that from those 32, we will reach the entire state at all levels of government. Next slide. So how are we able to get the so much activity in Ohio for advanced air mobility? All the images on the left are actual aircraft that are performing research and development at some level with the state of Ohio. And we are successful because of our realizing that, there's a lot of announcements in the news of demonstrations, and the industry is really prepared to move on from the demonstration phase and move into actual meaningful operations. So the Department of Transportation, working with our Jobs Ohio we're able to take enabling infrastructure of the infrastructure that I mentioned in the previous slides, couple that with their vehicle OEMs that have functional aircraft that are performing operations, and linking them with those business use cases is really where our success has been for operations in Ohio. Next slide. And this is one of those. This is a vertical landing and takeoff aircraft location, or what is being termed vertiports, that's been constructed at our Springfield Beckley Airport. Next quarter, we are planning for Beta Technologies, which has one of these aircraft that actually have airworthiness certificate and are able to fly as a traditional aircraft. They're going to do their maiden flight from Plattsburgh, New York, out to Springfield through their network that they're building. And this is one of their examples of what they see as the futuristic vertiport where they'll be landing at, and is constructed as part of our advanced air mobility infrastructure out at the Springfield Beckley Airport. Next slide. This is so again, to talk to Ohio's investment in supporting advanced air mobility. We will be breaking ground on a 2-story building with a hangar to support not only the Ohio UAS Center's offices, but also support the companies in the research and development of these aircraft, and continue our lead in the nation for the advanced air mobility, and just as another additional piece of infrastructure that Ohio will be investing in moving ahead.
Fred, we're going to try to wrap up now in 60 seconds. Thank you so much.
I think that might be my last slide. So next slide. Oh, and then just for everyone's information, we're trying to outreach to our local communities through our universities. We have a Vertaport Innovation Challenge, and that really is to engage our educational institutions to see what their concepts for a vertical and landing and takeoff locations and designs is part of our education and outreach. You can follow up for more information on that link that was there. And then that's all I had for today. So I appreciate the time, and I will pass it back over to Eileen.
All right. My gosh, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. And we're going to thank you. That was fascinating. I'm going to quick advance our next slide here. Just wrapping up, this afternoon, we're actually calling all of our governments together for a public health update. There's some new legislation that's going to impact all of our governments. So if you want to tune in, that's 3 o'clock today. We're going to be talking about more about our airports in September, more about the connection with economic development. Every community is impacted by that. So we'll be talking about our county airports and more of the investments going on, and we'll partner with MODE, Mid-Ohio Development Exchange. We'll be pulling our Southwest area governments together for a meeting in the Southwest area over at SWACO. And that actually brings us to a conclusion today. So thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll send you these slides. If you didn't register, then send me your email. And stay tuned to all the good things happening at Morpsey. Thank you, speakers. It was great.